Revealed. The incredible story that transformed 10,000 lives and cured laziness forever. Sarah Thompson stood behind the counter, the familiar clatter of plates and the constant hum of the diner enveloping her like a suffocating blanket. With each coffee she poured, a sense of frustration bubbled within her. At 28, she was a waitress in her small Midwestern town, serving breakfast to the same faces day after day, the dreams she once harbored dissipating into the air along with the steam from the espresso machine. She had graduated with honors, brimming with ambition to change the world. But here she was, scrubbing down counters, lost in a spiral of mediocrity. As she wiped away the remnants of yesterday's meals, doubt crept in. Was this all her life would amount to? Her father's voice echoed in her mind. You know your place, Sarah. Just stay steady. The weight of expectation from her family wrapped tightly around her, suffocating her every thought. Abruptly, the order for a stack of pancakes caught her attention, derailing her spiraling thoughts. But the unease remained. Could she really break free from this life? On an especially sweltering July afternoon, with the sun pouring through the dusty attic window of her grandfather's home, she stumbled upon a box filled with old journals, stirring something deep within her. Flipping through pages filled with her grandfather's meticulous notes on an invention aimed at inspiring productivity, her breath quickened. Could this unravel the hold that doubt had over her? Could she forge a path not just for herself, but for others stagnant in their own lives? Determination ignited as she envisioned the tool manifesting all her ambitions. Perhaps this invention could be a lifeline not only for her dreams but for the community's broader aspirations. But as she shared her vision with friends and acquaintances, the whispers of skepticism began. This is just a pipe dream, an old family friend scoffed, while the local business owners shook their heads in disbelief. You're talking about change, and this town thrives on tradition. Their responses festered inside her as she wrestled with the contrast of her budding ambitions against her familiar surroundings. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Balancing her shifts at the diner while pouring herself into the invention sparked both thrill and fear. Each setback threatened to overshadow her resolve, reminding her of the voices that questioned her ambition. Could she bear the ridicule from those she'd grown up with? The thought gnawed at her as she connected with her grandfather's spirit through those journals, feeling a sense of urgency. The reality of launching the invention loomed closer. An impending town hall meeting hovered like a storm cloud over her head. Standing before her peers to unveil her creation, she felt the pressure mount. Then, one influential businessman's words pierced through her hope. You really think this will change anything? The air crackled with skepticism, a tangible manifestation of doubt wrapping around her heart. In that moment, she realized the weight of her pursuit. If she faltered now, it wouldn't just be her dreams shattering, but the aspirations of everyone around her. The room fell silent, all eyes on her, as the echoes of doubt intertwined with flickers of determination, leaving Sarah caught in a wrestling match between ambition and despair. The final question hung heavily, a ticking time bomb, threatening to either ignite or extinguish her hopes forever. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick curtain of uncertainty draping over Sarah as she squared her shoulders, preparing to confront the skepticism that loomed large. Inside, her heart raced, a constant drumbeat of fear and determination. The businessmen surrounding her offered critical eyes, but beyond that, she sensed their doubts reflected something deeper: a fear of change, a fear that her aspirations could disrupt their rigid world. Taking a deep breath, Sarah grasped the small prototype of her invention in her trembling hands. It was more than plastic and circuitry. It represented every late-night thought, each whispered dream, and all the hard work she had poured into it. She couldn't let the weight of others' perceptions bury her ambitions any longer. What if I told you, she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "that this isn't just about me. It's about unlocking potential that's been dormant for far too long." The murmurs of doubt transformed into a hush, and for a fleeting moment, she felt the power of her narrative, the potential, not just to change her own trajectory, but to inspire those around her lost in their daily grind. Yet another voice broke the silence, this one tinged with an unsettling familiarity. "What makes you think you're capable of this?" It was Roger, a man who had always been the epitome of the town's skepticism, every word laced with an undercurrent of judgment. He crossed his arms, daring her to respond. The familiar grip of fear curled at her spine, but she pushed it down, fueled by a spark she had discovered in her grandfather's journals. "I've been in the same place that you are," Sarah replied, meeting Roger's icy gaze head-on. "I know the burden of expectations and the sting of doubt, but I refuse to let that define my path." With each word, she felt her resolve hardening, reshaping her disappointment into a blazing determination that could illuminate even the darkest skepticism. She spoke of the journals, of the vision her grandfather had, and how the tool she created could become a catalyst for breaking the cycle of mediocrity. She illustrated the change she envisioned, her voice rising as she painted a picture of hope that slid through the cracks where doubt had long taken residence. For a moment, she could see the shift in the atmosphere, the slight lean forward of some faces that had once been impassive. Perhaps her message was resonating, igniting something dormant in her listeners. Yet as quickly as it ignited, fear flickered within her, bringing with it the nagging thought of how easily those flames could be snuffed out. As the meeting wore on, Sarah sensed a dividing line forming. There were those who listened, and those who scoffed. The tension shifted, growing ever more fraught as she encountered both encouragement and disdain from her peers. With every question posed, every doubt scrutinized, she felt the pressure build around her like a vice. But she also felt something else, a stirring presence of solidarity that emboldened her. By the time she left, her heart was both heavy and light. Sarah had braved the confrontation, but the conversation continued to echo in her mind. Would they embrace change? Or was she destined to remain an outlier in a town clinging to its traditional roots? Determined to unearth answers, she resolved to confront Roger later, to challenge him not just as an antagonist, but as a voice that could incite change. Perhaps if she could break through his wall of skepticism, she could ignite the flame of ambition within others as well. But as she glanced back at the diner, the familiar feeling of begrudging acceptance washed over her. What awaited her in the wake of the town hall's outcome loomed with uncertainty. The path ahead was fraught with challenges. But one thing was clear: her journey had only just begun. As she walked away from the diner, a new resolve formed within her. She could no longer live confined by others' expectations or her own fears. It was time to confront her past and harness the resilience growing inside her. With her mind running a mile a minute, Sarah contemplated her next steps as she meandered through the streets. But looming ominously in the shadows of her thoughts was the undeniable fact. If she was to succeed, she had to prepare not only for challenges, but for the possibility of profound personal transformation. The weight of that realization settled on her, and a question emerged that sparked curiosity. What hidden strengths awaited her discovery, and how far was she willing to go to unearth them? As Sarah wove through the quiet evening streets, the chill nipped at her skin, a stark reminder of the looming confrontation with Roger. The air pulsed with a tension that mirrored her own internal struggle. Determination collided with doubt as each step brought her closer to not just a debate but a reckoning with her long-standing insecurities. The flickering streetlights seemed almost mocking, casting shadows that danced menacingly along the pavement beneath her. Replaying the earlier meeting in her mind, Sarah dissected each moment. Could she have argued better? Presented her invention with even more clarity? The thoughts spiraled, but within that whirlwind, she began to recognize a pattern. Her progress was not simply in the physical realm. It was also deeply rooted in her evolving mindset. She needed to embrace the discomfort of confrontation as part of her journey, a sacred rite of passage into a realm where her voice could command respect, not just tolerance. Arriving at Roger's office, she hesitated, her hand hovering before the door. Should she knock or find another opportunity to approach him? The instinct for self-preservation whispered against confrontation, yet the fire of ambition flared brighter. With a determined nod, she rapped the door firmly, feeling an odd shiver of excitement pulse through her. It was time to turn the tide, time to shape her narrative rather than let it be written for her. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Roger, his brow furrowed at the sudden intrusion. "Sarah, is something wrong?" he asked, the skepticism laced in his voice amusingly familiar. "No, Roger, nothing's wrong. I came to talk, to challenge that doubt." The words spilled forth, more confident than she felt. "Challenge what? My professional opinion?" He shot back, crossing his arms, his posture an impenetrable wall. "Yes," she replied, an unexpected steadiness grounding her. "Your skepticism isn't just an opinion. It feels like a limitation that binds not only you but everyone around you. I felt it for too long, and I refuse to accept it anymore." His expression flickered, something close to surprise illuminating his features for just an instant. Diving deeper, she needed to reveal more than just her defense. She had to present her vision with vigor. "Imagine if you could be part of something transformative. This isn't merely about an invention. It's about shifting mindsets, yours included." She approached evenly, forcing him to meet her gaze. "What are you so afraid of? Change? Letting go of what you know? You've thrived in certainty, but this world is evolving right outside our door. Roger, don't you want to be part of it?" His eyes narrowed, evaluating her challenge. "Or are you comfortable sitting in your office, allowing your fears to become your only legacy?" For a moment, silence hung between them like a taut string ready to snap. "You think you can provoke change in me?" he finally said, a hint of intrigue creeping into his tone. "I believe I can," Sarah affirmed, emboldened by her own conviction. "But that's the choice you have to make. You can either cling to what's familiar, or you can embrace the potential of what's to come." For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes, not just regarding Sarah's aspirations, but within the very foundation of his own beliefs. She had crossed a line, saying aloud what had loomed in the shadows of their town for too long. The response he offered, whether it be acceptance or rejection, would not just alter their dynamic but perhaps alter their entire community's trajectory. With her heart racing, she realized that this confrontation was a mirror reflecting her own deepest fears. Had she really dared to step beyond the boundaries of skepticism? What lay ahead was uncertain, as fragile as glass yet charged with the possibility of shattering old paradigms. What if Roger found the courage to align with her path of change? And if he didn't? The weight of these realizations surged within her. In that moment, Sarah understood the stakes of her endeavor were far greater than personal ambition. They beckoned to an existential dialogue about who they all aspired to become. A step forward or a retreat into the shadows, only one path held the promise of genuine transformation. But where would that lead? A charged silence enveloped the room, thick enough to cut through with a knife. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a steady echo of defiance rhythmically drowning out the doubt that had wound itself around her thoughts. In the face of Roger's unyielding stare, she felt the tension stretch, expanding into the corners of the office. She had come here not merely to convince him, but to confront the doubts that lingered within her, fears that screamed she wasn't enough. "Let us not pretend. You've seen what I can do," she continued, her voice steady but low enough to signal the seriousness of her intent. "You know my invention could change lives. So why dismiss it? Is it because it challenges your view of the world?" Roger shuffled slightly, the weight of her words settling over him. It wasn't just about her invention anymore. It was about the very foundations of his perceptions. Sarah could see the gears turning in his mind, her challenge tugged at his resolve like a thread unraveling a carefully stitched fabric. "Sarah, it's not that simple," he finally replied, his voice calmer but laced with irritation. "You're talking about transforming entire methodologies that have been in place for decades. Change doesn't come easy, and you know that. Maybe that's the problem," she pressed on, stepping further into the room. "Ease has made us complacent. whereas the ambition to break barriers, to risk failure for something that could redefine success itself. Each word poured out with newfound conviction, filling the space between them with an electric current. She could feel her pulse quicken, igniting a flame of passion within her. If she could expose the very fears that shackled him, maybe he would see the potential lurking within the shadows. What is scarier, failing at something new or never trying at all? His eyes shifted, caught between her challenge and the steadfast walls of his own skepticism. For a moment, she felt the universe shift. The possibility of breaking through the years of habit and expectation hung in the balance. What if she could unearth that spark of courage, not just in him but deep within herself as well? Doubt is a heavy burden, Roger, she said softly, pivoting slightly and allowing her vulnerability to seep through for just a moment. I've carried mine for years, but I realize now if I don't confront it head-on, I'll remain adrift forever. Something cracked within him, if only slightly, a flicker that illuminated a shadow of doubt in his usually unshakable demeanor. It was a small victory for Sarah, a reminder that sometimes the toughest battles lie within one's perspective. Let us say I entertain this idea of change, he began, his words cautious, as if testing the waters of uncertainty. What's your plan? How do you propose we navigate through all this? Relief surged through her at his willingness to engage, to consider her vision regardless of how unformed it still felt in her mind. Let us start with a workshop. We can invite a mix of people from different sectors to share ideas, see the impact of fresh perspectives. The seed of possibility planted itself, but self-doubt threatened to overshadow her optimism. What if he shot it down? More importantly, what if she couldn't rally enough support to make it happen? The stakes were climbing, the weight of expectation pressing down heavily. I want to give you room to lead, she added, her voice dropping to a near whisper. But I need you to step outside your comfort zone. If we can't embrace the fear, we risk losing everything. A pause lingered in the air, and for a moment Sarah studied him, wondering if he was weighing the implications of her words. The path ahead was obscured by uncertainty, but she felt a glimmer of hope pushing through the fog. As Roger's brow furrowed deeper, she sensed the resolve growing in him, a hesitant seed of willingness to explore what could be. But that resolve was fraught with contradictions, and she could feel the tension mounting, a tightrope balancing on the edge of a breakthrough or a breakdown. In the quiet battle of wills, Sarah prepared for the next part of the conversation, her mind racing with strategies, while her heart clamored for a leap of faith. Would he take the plunge and join her, or would his fears pull him back into silence? The imminent choice teetered over the threshold of transformative potential, a moment that could finally shatter the glass of expectations and lead to bold new ventures. It was a tentative hope, a fragile thread woven with uncertainty, but if pursued, it was a thread that might bind them both to a different destiny. The question loomed larger than ever, palpable in the charged air. Would Roger walk this path with her, or would he step back and let fear win once again? The silence between them expanded, filled with unspoken words that danced through the tension like moths around a flame. Sarah took a deep breath, her pulse vibrating with the weight of what was at stake, not just for her idea, but for everyone who depended on innovation to pave a new path forward. Could she truly lead Roger to see beyond his fears? As she watched him consider her, memories of failures and doubts surged within her. Each one a flicker of that heavy burden, a reminder that success often only came after a long march through failure and insecurity. Sarah, he said, breaking the stillness, his voice softer, you need to understand the magnitude of what you're proposing. We're challenging prevailing norms. Are you prepared for that kind of backlash? His doubt didn't diminish her resolve. If anything, it ignited a fiercer determination inside her. Backlash is part of pushing boundaries. It's the price of progress, she stated, feeling each word resonate within her. But if we don't face that backlash, what happens to the potential savings of lives we could have improved? What happens to every person waiting for solutions? The vulnerability she had revealed earlier was now traded for a fervent conviction. She was no longer just asking for Roger's support. She was demanding it, not only from him but from herself. This idea wasn't merely a product. It was a dream that demanded advocacy, mentorship, and above all, collaboration. "Let us lay it all out there, let's take a leap of faith together," she proposed, her voice rising in fervor. "If we can gather voices willing to discuss this, to confront the fears together, we may be creating a roadmap for others to follow." He leaned back in his chair, the cogs visibly churning in his mind as he considered her. The intense scrutiny she endured felt less like a judgment and more like a trial by fire, each moment shaping her resilience. Would facing these challenges together forge a new path for everyone, or would the weight of conformity snuff out their collective vision? As she planned her next steps, Sarah's mind raced with ideas. Who could they invite to this workshop? Which thought leaders might lend their credence to the mission? A whirlwind of names and strategies flitted through her consciousness, each one a potential building block toward something greater. But with each potential ally came an avalanche of doubt that her plan was too ambitious, that she was merely a dreamer clinging to wishful thinking. The specter of self-doubt whispered in her ear, urging her to retreat back to safer ground, but she doubled down. "Roger, we can't shy away from the hard conversations," she insisted, her voice steady. "What good is innovation if it remains confined to the echo chambers of our safety? We have to break free from that mold." He watched her, eyes narrowing, as if he were peeling back the layers of her argument, searching for cracks, vulnerabilities that he could exploit. But he was greeted by a determined facade, bolstered now by a surge of self-awareness. She was forging herself anew, slowly sculpting the individual she aspired to be, one who would not only innovate but inspire others to embark on their journeys. As she gathered her thoughts to press further, Roger shifted again, his expression revealing a glimmer of intrigue. "Let me think it over," he said finally, though the caution still lingered in his tone. "I'm not committing to anything yet." That flicker of curiosity from Roger was enough for Sarah. It suggested that despite his warrior armor of skepticism, he was not impervious. She felt the mounting anticipation of their impending collaboration, that bubble of hope thickening in the air. But what if indecision lingered in his heart? What if he chose to cling to caution instead of momentum? As she contemplated the possibility of future conversations, Sarah realized that she was standing at the precipice of a significant transition, not just for their project but for her personal evolution. "Thank you for considering it," she said, her voice softened, grounding herself in a bond she hoped would solidify. Exhaling deeply, she stepped back from the conversation, aware that her journey was far from complete. Uncertainty shadowed her steps, and the tightrope of her aspirations pulled her in two conflicting directions. And yet, a single truth surfaced: this was the beginning, not just for the workshop idea, but for a new Sarah, willing to face the world's harsh lights and its skepticism. As she left the office, the questions unspooled before her. What other fears lurked in the shadows, waiting to be confronted? What plans awaited execution, hiding behind the curtain of uncertainty? She wouldn't just challenge Roger, she would challenge herself. The time had come to face the unknown, to unravel each layer until she discovered what lay beneath her own perceived limitations. Would she emerge victorious, or would she stumble under the weight of her own ambition? The next morning, sunlight spilled through Sarah's window, illuminating her determined reflection in the glass. The echoes of her conversation with Roger lingered in her mind, each word a reminder of the tightrope she was walking, her professional ambitions intertwined with her personal growth. She couldn't afford to retreat to the shadows again. Fueled by a newly minted resolve, she began crafting a list of potential collaborators for the workshop, each name a beacon of possibility. Yet, lurking just beneath the surface of her focus was the haunting whisper of uncertainty. What if they could see through her bluster? What if they, like Roger, chose caution over possibility? That thought clawed at her mind, threatening to erode her confidence. As she inked the names on her notepad, Sarah's thoughts turned inward. She questioned her motivations. Was she merely seeking validation from her peers? Or was there a deeper purpose driving her passion for this project? What was it about innovation that stirred her soul? Each question felt like a litmus test, challenging her sincerity and determination. She quickly realized that this endeavor wasn't simply about her idea. It was about creating a shift, a ripple that might inspire others to stand up for underrepresented visions. With her internal dialogue buzzing, Sarah decided to confront her anxiety head-on. She reached for her phone and scheduled a series of informational meetings with some of her first choices. Voices of authority who had previously navigated the waters of challenge and transformation, each one shaping the industry in different ways. This was not just a networking opportunity. It was a strategic maneuver. If she could engage these thought leaders, they might bolster her credibility and that of her idea. As she slid her phone back onto the desk, her heart raced at the prospect. The fear of rejection was an old companion, but it no longer felt debilitating. This time she was prepared. Sarah recalled her past failures and recognized them as stepping stones. Each stumble had equipped her with insights and resilience. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, each email crafted with intent. But halfway through typing a message to a widely respected innovator, she froze. The blinking cursor on the screen seemed to taunt her. Did she really have the authority to reach out to someone of that stature? Doubt seeped in like a cold draft. She could almost hear the voice of her inner critic sneering at her. "Stop it," Sarah whispered to herself, shaking off the negative thoughts. She had seen others assume leadership roles, even when they felt unqualified. The best leaders she admired were those who had the audacity to challenge their limitations, to step beyond the boundaries that fear imposed. Taking a deep breath, she pressed send on the email. Each like, reply, or interest from potential collaborators lit a small fire in her chest. But alongside this exhilaration came the realization that leading others was about more than just inspiration. It was about accountability. She had to ensure that her vision was sound and ethical. She wasn't just selling an idea. She was advocating for a collective movement. That notion prompted her to ask herself a crucial question. What principles did she stand for? With clarity, she began jotting down a mission statement, a concise declaration of her intentions and goals. This would ground her as she navigated the uncertain waters ahead. As she distilled her vision into a few impactful sentences, an unexpected warmth surrounded her. Knowing her purpose was essential. It was her anchor amidst turbulence. Later that afternoon, Sarah found herself in a cafe, intent on working through her mission statement. The rhythm of clinking cups and soft murmurs served as a comforting backdrop as she penned her core values. She passed through waves of intuitive clarity and mental fog, iterating her thoughts, reflecting on what type of leader she aspired to be. Determination hardened into conviction, and conviction backed into strategy. Yet, as she finished a few drafts, the cafe door swung open, and in walked Roger. Their eyes met briefly before he moved to order, a surge of emotion crinkling her brow. Could he see her as more than just a junior associate? Would his recent interest spark an evolving partnership, or would it dwindle back into the shadows of skepticism? She felt the weight of her ambitions pressing against her chest. With every scrap of coherent thought she'd stitched together, she knew that this was about more than her perception of limits. It was about leading an idea as much as leading herself. Were her insecurities merely shells, waiting to be cracked open and discarded? As she stood to greet him, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would determine more than their collaboration, could also redefine her journey. She was no longer just an aspiring innovator. She was becoming a catalyst for change, and that brought forth both exhilaration and fear. "Sarah," he said, a hint of unpredictability in his tone. "I've been thinking." The moment stretched, hanging in the air like the tantalizing uncertainty of what lay ahead. Would he support her bold vision, or would the door close again? Each heartbeat pulsed with potential, echoing the unresolved tension of her journey thus far. "We should really discuss your proposal," Roger continued, the promise in his voice twisting her insides into knots of anticipation. Sarah's heart raced. This wasn't merely a casual conversation. This was an invitation to unlock the potential of what she had envisioned. "Of course," she replied, her voice steady despite the tumult of emotions roiling beneath her calm exterior. She gestured to a vacant table nestled in a cozy corner of the cafe, hoping that the intimacy of the setting would foster an open dialogue. As they settled into their seats, she observed Roger's demeanor closely, searching for clues into his thoughts. His fingers drummed lightly against the table, a subtle indication of his engagement and a reminder of the high stakes involved. This was her chance to solidify her vision, to validate her worth in this industry. Roger leaned forward, his expression curious. "I'm intrigued by what you've been cultivating. Tell me more about the core ideas you want to share." His encouraging tone ignited a much-needed fire within Sarah, but she felt the familiar shroud of self-doubt creeping back in. "Right. So, I've been focusing on the importance of diverse voices in innovation," she began, her voice regaining strength with each phrase. She laid out her insights, illustrating her beliefs about the power of representation and how it can reshape industry standards. She watched Roger's reactions closely. His nods and furrowed brows signaled his interest, yet she felt the need to anchor her ideas in a concrete plan. "Let us break this down," he suggested after she finished, his analytical mind evidently piecing together the puzzle before him. "What's your action plan? How do you intend to gather these voices and translate that into something actionable?" In that moment, she felt a rush of clarity. This was where her earlier reflection on accountability echoed loudly. She needed more than just a grand vision. She needed a strategy that outlined each step, ensuring the journey was as robust as the destination. With fervor, she began mapping out the components of her proposal: potential workshops, platforms for sharing ideas, and ways to measure impact. She could see the barriers of insecurity quietly crumbling as she spoke, the essence of her mission manifesting in front of her. "Sarah, this could actually work," Roger remarked, leaning back with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Her confidence soared, but the weight of responsibility settled back. "But," he added, his expression turning serious, "you need to anticipate counterarguments. Not everyone will embrace this concept immediately. You'll face resistance." His words hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the obstacles she would likely encounter. "What if they don't see it the way I do?" she responded, vulnerability slipping into her tone. "What if my voice is drowned out by the naysayers?" The fear clawed at the edges of her resolve, igniting a fresh wave of anxiety. "You're going to face that no matter what," he replied, grounding her with his reassurance. "But if you prepare, if you reinforce your arguments with data and real-world examples, you can counter them effectively. Remember, every leader faces the storm. What matters is how you choose to navigate through it." Roger's faith in her resilience hit her in unexpected ways, igniting a spark of courage. She realized that embracing the potential for rejection was necessary for growth. It pushed her to refine her ideas, to strengthen her foundation, leading her not to doubt but to flourish and expand. As their meeting progressed, they brainstormed possible collaborations, discussing workshops and panels that could elevate her vision. Each idea they exchanged further solidified her commitment. She could gather a community of champions around her, influencers ready to amplify the voices of the unheard. Her eyes sparkled with determination. She could make a real difference. Just as she felt she was gaining momentum, Roger paused and regarded her seriously. "You're on the edge of something significant, Sarah, but you need to confront something even deeper: the reason behind your passion. What is it that drives this?" His question pierced her, ricocheting through her thoughts and echoing what she had pondered days ago. In that moment, clarity erupted from the subterranean of her consciousness. It was about more than changing perceptions. It was about justice, equality, and dismantling barriers that prevented unique voices from rising. The warmth she felt earlier swelled again, intertwining with an urgency she had yet to fully grasp. "I want to leave a legacy that allows people to see themselves represented," she asserted passionately. "I want them to feel validated, to know their stories matter." Roger studied her for a moment longer before nodding. "Then you need to channel that fire. Harness it not just as a dreamer but as a campaigner for these principles. I believe you have more to offer than you realize." With resolve stitched into her very being, Sarah straightened her posture, feeling revitalized yet weighed down by the complexity of the journey ahead. She understood that embracing the multifaceted challenges meant trumpeting not only her idea but also her own evolving identity as a leader. "Are you ready to dive into this, then?" Roger asked. "Absolutely," she replied, the thrum of ambition harmonizing with uncertainty. As they discussed next steps, her mind raced with possibility. A revelation surged within her. This wasn't simply a professional endeavor, this was a transformative odyssey. A tapestry she was weaving of her passion and purpose. "Let us set a timeline," she suggested, adrenaline fueling her leadership. She defaced the obstacles head-on and collect the stories that demanded to be told. In the fervor of planning, she felt aligned with something greater. Her mission was now twofold: to lead and to inspire. Suddenly, Roger leaned in closer. "Just remember, the journey is filled with unexpected twists. Can you handle the backlash that may come when others start to notice your rise?" Her breath caught in her throat. Clarity met apprehension in a taut balance. Her journey was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would she have the strength to endure the turbulence ahead, or would she falter in the face of resistance? Sarah woke the next morning propelled by an urgency that shredded the remnants of sleep from her eyes. As sunlight spilled through her window, it felt like a spotlight illuminating her path. Determined, she reached for her notebook and a pen. The swirling ideas from her meeting with Roger fanned out before her, begging to be organized, refined, and transformed into something actionable. She started with an outline. Her fingers danced over the page, mirroring the intensity building inside her. Each bullet point represented facets of her vision. Workshops tailored to amplify marginalized voices, networking opportunities to connect aspiring innovators, forums for discussion that would promote dialogue and understanding. But as Sarah crafted her plan, doubts intruded like smoke in a clear sky. What if her voice was too small to carry the weight of this mission? What if she quashed the thought? Failure loomed silently, waiting to pounce. Shaking her head to dispel the discouragement, she reminded herself of Roger's words. Every leader faced resistance. She must be prepared. If she wanted this to work, she needed to educate herself. Early that afternoon, armed with coffee and determination, she plowed through demographic data, studies on the impact of diversity in innovation, and anecdotes from figures who had championed these ideals. The more she read, the more empowered she felt, a foundation of knowledge solidifying under her wavering confidence. Yet witnessing her own relentless determination begged further introspection. Why was she doing this? The question reverberated in her mind, urging deeper reflection. It was about more than just personal legacy. It was about confronting her own history. The struggles she had faced in her career haunted her as she recalled the dismissals, the lone struggles in meetings where her voice barely reverberated. This wasn't a mere professional challenge, it was a personal reckoning. Fueled by newfound clarity, Sarah scribbled down potential venues for workshops and possible partnerships with organizations that aligned with her vision. The tensions among her professional aspirations, her own experiences of exclusion, and her desire for change coalesced. Each line she wrote drew her closer to the woman she aspired to become: powerful, impactful, unapologetic. By week's end, her proposal had evolved into something tangible. Sharing it with trusted colleagues felt like stepping onto a tightrope above a gorge. Would they see the value in her proposition or dismiss it? Day by day, anticipation curdled into fear as she imagined the reactions. Ignoring the instinct to retreat, Sarah scheduled a meeting with a few colleagues who were known for their insightful critiques. The day arrived, and every minute felt like an eternity. As she stood, presenting her ideas, she felt the weight of their gazes and a sense of vulnerability that threatened to unseat her. Alex, a seasoned colleague known for his critical counsel, interjected unexpectedly. "This is powerful, Sarah, but I challenge you on your approach to engaging those voices. You need to specify how you will ensure they are truly heard and not just present in the room." His feedback ignited anger and frustration, yet deep down, she perceived a valuable lesson in his critique. It wasn't enough to just aim for inclusion. She had to ensure that participation meant meaningful dialogue, not token acknowledgement. Gathering her thoughts, she defended her position while simultaneously absorbing his points, crafting a rebuttal that would strengthen her framework. "You're right, Alex. Authentic engagement requires deeper connections. I will work on taking a more proactive approach to ensuring that every voice not only exists but thrives. As they continued the discussion, her room of critics evolved into a supportive think tank, and an electric synergy emerged among them. Their questions, instead of stifling her resolve, pushed her boundaries further. She found herself refining her concepts with each new insight. As the meeting concluded, she felt a flickering flame of hope blossom. The echoes of her insecurities began to diminish, replaced by the promise of collaboration. But lingering questions festooned her mind. Was she truly ready to dive into this sphere? Could she handle the pushback when the broader industry began to engage with her work, especially the entrenched voices she feared would try to extinguish her flame? The answers danced on her lips, as she realized she had only scratched the surface. In confronting external doubts, she had unearthed a daunting truth. The hardest battles might not lie ahead with the industry but within her own psyche. Just as she started to regain a sense of confidence, her phone buzzed with a message from Roger. Let us discuss how we can elevate this further. Partners are essential and I have a few ideas. But let us meet today. I sense you're onto something profound. Her heart raced, adrenaline pumping through her veins. She had thrust herself into the fray, but was she about to uncover something even more significant, something that could shake the very foundations of her beliefs? With both enthusiasm and trepidation swirling inside her, Sarah understood her journey was far from over. The moment of truth was near. Would she rise, ready to accept the forthcoming challenges? Or would the weight of expectation prove too much? The coffee shop was bustling, a chorus of voices and clinking cups, and yet Sarah felt ensconced in a bubble of focus as she waited for Roger. She glanced at her notebook, her scribbles now familiar outlines of ambition, and for a moment, she was lost in the potential of what might unfold if she could make this vision a reality. When Roger arrived, he exuded an energy that engaged her immediately. His presence was commanding, and for a brief moment, she felt a flicker of self-doubt about her own stature in the conversation. But as he settled at the table, all eyes on her became a reminder that she had earned the right to be here. Sarah, he greeted warmly, leaning in with curiosity apparent in his eyes. I've been thinking about our last chat and the feedback you got. Sounds like you are really digging deep. I am, she replied, confidence surging forward. But I also know that digging deep isn't enough. I need to get it right to present something that resonates. Alex helped me see that. Good, Roger responded, his tone encouraging. Critique is your ally right now. Let us talk partners and elevating your plan. They delved into the nuts and bolts, discussing ways to amplify her proposal. Ideas flowed back and forth, and Sarah found herself weaving goals with Roger's suggestions. With every insight, the palpable tension morphed into excitement, and for the first time, she could envision her concept unfurling like a flag on a pole, bold and visible. But nothing felt more challenging than articulating her methodology for engaging those often overlooked. She had studied how to connect those voices meaningfully and was keenly aware of the skepticism she might face from others. Learning to navigate that landscape not only held professional stakes but personally resonated with her, a call to challenge her insecurities head-on. As they wrapped up, Roger posed a question that shrouded her newfound momentum in uncertainty. Do you believe this venture is personal for you, Sarah? Maybe even existential? The question struck deeply, needles of truth prodding her self-awareness. It is, she admitted, vulnerability thinning the air between them. This isn't just about professional success for me. It's about redeeming the barriers I've encountered. He smiled, perhaps recognizing the struggle as a common thread among leaders, and yet it sent a shiver of anxiety slinking through her. Would unveiling these nuances help propel her forward, or would they make her raw and targetable in a fickle professional landscape? Sarah found herself weighing that burden against an embraced truth. She wanted to lead authentically, but authenticity demanded transparency. What if that transparency exposed her vulnerabilities to those who might seek to exploit them? As they stood to leave, Roger suggested a meeting with potential partners from other organizations, individuals who held influence and had built reputations of integrity. The idea thrilled her and terrified her in equal measure. Let us do it, she asserted. I believe that the voices we uplift can change perceptions. But I need to be equipped to share my journey too, without fear or hesitation. Then you're on the right track, he affirmed. Share your journey, and you'll connect deeper. Just remember, every story can be a power move. The conversation left her invigorated, yet looming questions clawed at the back of her mind. How could she share her journey without feeling laid bare? Was she prepared to confront the multifaceted perceptions the industry harbored? As night fell, and Sarah reflected on the day, she recognized the thin line between light and shadow within her ambition. She wasn't just navigating ideas anymore. She was on the cusp of unveiling her truth. It both threatened to consume her and beckoned her forward, attention teetering on the precipice of revelation. In the quiet aftermath of a productive meeting, Sarah understood it was only the beginning. She steeled herself for the opportunities ahead, knowing the greatest tests would demand she face her core, a task more daunting than any professional obstacle she had ever encountered. Just before sleep claimed her, a new realization crystallized. If she could face her history, perhaps she would find not only her confidence but a pathway toward the transformation she so desperately sought. The moment of truth was approaching. Would she shed the facade and emerge empowered, or slip back into the shadows where doubt lingered? The next step beckoned as her phone buzzed with another notification, a reminder that the challenge had only just begun. In the soft glow of dawn, Sarah awoke with clarity coursing through her veins. Each day had led her to this moment, where she could no longer afford to shy away from her potential. She had spent weeks crafting her vision, refining her methods, and braving confrontations with gatekeepers like Roger. Now, the time had come to present her innovative initiative to a broader audience, including potential partners eager to amplify marginalized voices in the industry. Sarah's heart raced as she stood before the mirror, the reflection revealing a determined woman ready to confront the next stage of her journey. This wasn't about just her ambitions anymore. It was about empowering others to break free from the constraints that held them captive. With every brushstroke of her mascara, she adorned herself not merely with makeup but with the armor of confidence she had carefully cultivated. Later that day, she entered the conference room where a diverse group of industry leaders awaited her presentation. Their faces exhibited a mix of skepticism and curiosity, a living audience of the very doubts she had endured her entire life. As she stepped to the front, the weight of expectation wrapped around her like a cloak. It was palpable yet invigorating. "Thank you all for being here today," Sarah began, her voice steady as she scanned the room. "This isn't just a pitch. It's a movement to redefine our industry by ensuring that underrepresented voices are not just acknowledged but amplified." As she shared her meticulously crafted proposal, she saw the initial skepticism in their expressions begin to thaw. She spoke passionately about the workshops she envisioned and the collaborative platforms that would allow diverse voices to flourish. Each statistic she presented grounded her narrative in fact, transforming doubt into intrigue, as she illustrated how innovation thrived on inclusivity. Yet, it was when she illuminated her personal journey that the atmosphere shifted dramatically. "Through my own experiences, I learned that my voice mattered, even when it felt silenced. My hope is to create a space where others can claim their narratives, just as I have fought to reclaim mine," she declared. The group leaned in, and an unexpected bolt of energy surged within her. No longer was she just presenting ideas. She was issuing a call to action. Questions were posed not to dismantle her confidence, but rather to seek deeper understanding. Each inquiry was met with a thoughtful response, and the dialogue transformed from a one-sided presentation into a collaborative exploration. As the meeting drew to a close, a well-respected industry leader raised her hand. "Sarah, what you're proposing is not only visionary but necessary. I want to partner with you and harness our resources toward making this initiative a reality. Together, we can pioneer what you've envisioned." A wave of exhilaration surged through Sarah, flooding her with a sense of validation she had long sought. In that moment, the years of battling self-doubt faded into the backdrop. Accomplishing this objective was no longer just about overthrowing her critics, but about embodying the change she wished to see in the industry. As applause filled the room, Sarah realized she had not only conquered her own insecurities, but had sparked a movement that resonated deeply with those who shared her vision. The discussions swirling around her were replete with ideas, enthusiasm, and an ardent belief in the potential of collaborative creation. By inviting others into her journey, she sparked a collective realization each had the power to uplift the narrative. Days transitioned into weeks as Sarah embarked on multifaceted initiatives, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. Her workshops gathered momentum, drawing participants from various backgrounds, each eager to share their stories and innovations. One by one, she fostered a community that actively dismantled traditional barriers, expanding the horizons of what innovation and collaboration could achieve. At award ceremonies and industry panels, she found herself being recognized not as a mere participant, but as a transformative leader. Colleagues sought her insight on outreach strategies and community engagement, acknowledging her role as a catalyst for change. That recognition translated into respect, not just from her peers but from the very skeptics who once doubted her worth. As Sarah stood on the stage to receive an award for her contributions, she reflected on her journey. The girl who had once felt suffocated in a diner had transformed into a leader who inspired others to reclaim their voices and innovate fearlessly. In that moment of fulfillment, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This was not merely an end. It was a new chapter, one that emphasized growth and the continuing journey. She had achieved more than addressing her personal inadequacies. She had conquered the limitations imposed by others. Standing tall, she embraced the applause and feedback, cherishing every nod of affirmation as no longer a superficial accolade, but as a testament to her evolution. As she walked off the stage, a clear message resonated deep within her spirit. She was not just a survivor of doubt, but a beacon of transformational change in her field. The silence of her past was now drowned by the voices she had helped uplift, and she resolved to continue this momentum, leading the way for others to follow. Sarah stepped into her new role, ready to explore even greater horizons, knowing the journey ahead held infinite potential. Now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to our channel to stay updated on exclusive emotional stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more people. Your voice matters, so comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Together, we can amplify voices and spark transformation.